Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Welcome back, and here we are for another 5 Yard Rush flagship show. As ever recently, I'm Dan. I'm going to host you through it, and we are joined by Murf again. How are you, Murf? You good?
All good. All recovered from COVID now, which is terrific. Bit tired this morning after last night's games.
Blame it on COVID.
Yeah, I just blame it on COVID. No, all good. I mean, we got treated to some good games last night. Both of them were very close. Would say that the caliber was not quite as good as the divisional round, which was some of the best games you'll ever see. So it's probably not a surprise it was a small drop off, but there was definitely some, an exciting weekend. I think for some, definitely an unexpected set of results. I know for me in particular, wasn't expecting the outcome in either game. So, it was great. And the NFL, again, just showing why it's the best product in the world of sports right now, and why it's completely unrivaled and continues to be unrivaled. So amazing. How about yourself, Dan? How's tricks?
Yeah, I'm very good. And I've been saying to other people, anybody who doesn't follow the NFL or wonders what it's about, go and watch this week's or even last week's games, even for just a half-hour snippet highlights, and you'll get some kind of understanding of what this sport actually brings to a viewer. Whether you're invested in a team or not, even as a neutral, it has something to grip you at the minute. And it's fantastic time to be following the sport.
Yeah, it really is. And, we've got a great Super Bowl coming up, and we've got someone very special here to join us to help break down yesterday's action. He's a very good friend of mine, so I'm excited for this one.
Good, we are. Yeah, as you can see, we are joined by Pat Fitzmaurice, who's the editor at FantasyPros and the host of the Fit on Fantasy podcast, and Rankings King, I'm reliably informed. I don't know how you handle that title, Pat. How do you live up to that?
Do I get an Iron Throne with that, Dan? Do I get some sort of scepter, some crown?
We'll speak to Dan Harris. I'm sure by now they probably have arranged one for you.
Speak to Murph.
Very nice to join both of you gentlemen. Couldn't agree more with what you were saying about the NFL and the caliber of the product we've seen the last 2 weeks. Maybe more so in the divisional round, as Murph said. Maybe the caliber of play this past Sunday wasn't quite up to the previous Sunday, but still really exciting. Both games right down to the wire. So it's going to be an interesting Super Bowl. Definitely.
Sure is. And how are things over at Fantasy Pros? What have you guys been up to over there?
Oh, man. It kind of never stops. I was sprucing up my Dynasty rankings during the games yesterday, kind of sitting there on the couch with the laptop and getting those. Realized, I needed to move some players around quite a bit. Even in the last few weeks with the playoffs and the final couple of weeks of the regular season, I mean, there were some seismic changes in values to some of these players. So, I had to move up Gabriel Davis, among other players. Lately, Cam Akers, who we didn't know was going to be fit even for next year, all of a sudden coming back unexpectedly for the playoffs. So it was before the playoffs. Yeah, it's things are always interesting. We're going to have the draft ahead. We cover baseball too. I know you lads aren't quite as interested in that, but we have to pay mind to that a little bit. So we're definitely still busy, even in the so-called off season.
My baseball fandom ended on David Ortiz's retirement, who obviously made the Hall of Fame this week. But I do have a Red Sox Garcia Parra jersey here, so and a Jason Varitek jersey. So
Nomar was
to that era.
Nomar was a favorite of mine too. Love that guy.
Good. So we've obviously mentioned the games at the weekend. Pat, give us your insight into the Bengals Chiefs to start with. What was your thoughts?
Man, I love that the Bengals were so resilient, falling behind 21-3 and able to come back and just, man, I didn't expect the defense to have that sort of a turnaround after the Chiefs pretty much had their way and got whatever they wanted to in the first quarter or so of that game. And Joe Burrow is just terrific. I mean, I've just fallen in love with the guy over time, and just a little over a full year removed from a pretty devastating knee injury, and like yesterday we saw traces of the mobility he showed when he was at LSU. Like that's starting to come back, adding another dimension to his game. So and I just I know some Bengals fans, and like that's a fan base that's suffered a lot since the 1980s. It was always Joe Montana dispatching them in the Super Bowl years ago, and maybe this is their time. Joe Montana isn't gonna hurt the Bengals fans this time. So
those older generation Bengals fans would have been devastated to see the Niners waiting for him in the Super Bowl again, wouldn't they? After the last appearances, the fate was written on the cards if that was the case.
You say that, but I can't help but think that actually would have wished that they would have held on. I know who they probably would have wanted to have faced more. I still think, give me the poison. I'd have taken the 49ers over the Rams, I think. But I do think they match up well against the Rams. So we'll say that. I think we'll maybe talk a little bit about what the Super Bowl looks like, and we'll do a lot more if we can over the next few weeks. But for me, the unsung hero yesterday was the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. Anarumo, I think, just was phenomenal. The way that he made those adjustments, dropping 8 back into coverage, and really just going to Mahomes. Look, we're going to change the game now. We're going to drop 8 back. We're not going to give you much in the coverage. We know that you can throw a slant pass. We know you can throw it across the middle. We're going to make you take some shots, and we're going to really pack the options up. And Mahomes was a bit baffled there. It was amazing because the first half, Tony Romo is talking about how this offense is so patient. It will take what it will give you. It will just, it was a homage to how good the Chiefs are. And then all of a sudden, maybe, and I remember must have had that in his ear and just thought, I'm not having this. Because when they dropped back, to 8 defenders 35% of the time, which was the most they've done all season. This is according to Next Gen Stats. And then when they did that, Mahomes went 6 or 7 of 13 for 59 yards, a pick, 2 sacks. He just didn't have an answer to it. And I thought it was remarkable that when you think of the experience that Andy Reid has, you think of the experience Pat Mahomes and that entire team has, you can excuse the offensive line for some sacks. There was quite a new offensive line unit. That's going to happen. They didn't give up that many, gave up 3. I was just surprised they didn't have an answer. They just didn't have an answer for the defensive coverage. They had no idea how to move that ball. And it was baffling. It took them 30 minutes or 24 minutes or so before they went on that last drive to work it out. And I think that's a huge testament to, and I think if this was a more fancied defensive coordinator, if this was a Todd Bowles, if this was a Wink Martindale, if this was a Robert Saleh of last year, this is where all the praise would have gone. It would have gone to the defensive coordinator. I think maybe, I don't know if he's just not fancy, whether he's not well liked. I don't know. Maybe he annoyed people when he was at the Giants. I really have no idea. But I was surprised at how little credit he got out. It was all about Burrow. And rightfully so. He deserves a lot of credit to come back with that maturity of that, to be that young, second year in the league, and to do what he did, and to not have that mentality of just rolling over. But the defense made the stops. And if it wasn't for them, Burrow would never have been allowed to come back. So I think let's give credit where it's due and give this Bengals defensive staff. And Trey Hendrickson, by the way, yesterday, unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen him play a better game. He was absolutely phenomenal. He's going to be a handful for anyone next week or 2 weeks' time.
I mean, it quite literally was the old saying of a game of 2 halves. And a lot of it pivoted, I think, on the Bengals stopping the goal line stop right before half time, because the Chiefs were running away with momentum at that stage. Well, I think there was 5 seconds on the clock, 3 or 4 yards to go. And rather than take the 3, Mahomes decided that he had a play in him. And Eli Apple decided to turn up for one very rare occasion during the game. So do we think it pivoted on that, Pat?
Yeah. What Murf said about the change to dropping back all those guys there, it was clear that Mahomes was confused and frustrated by what he was seeing. I mean, so many times late in that game where he would drop back in the pocket and have all the time in the world because he was, dealing with a 3-man rush. still had nowhere to go with the ball. And that, I'm sure that was frustrating for Chiefs fans to see that, like a defense confounding Mahomes like that to such an extent. And, Murph also shouted out Hendrickson. I know there was that one play where I think he chased, Mahomes kind of was trying to get outside that 3-man rush, and Hendrickson chased him to the sideline on that final drive. And I don't know if like Hendrickson pulled up lame or if he was just so out of breath from like rushing for seemingly 20 seconds on that play, but like he was out. He had to be sidelined for a couple of plays, and I'm like, oh no, they're going to score here without Hendrickson on the field. Like he had played so well to that point, but he and DJ Reader for sure unsung heroes on that Bengals defense. Just amazing players who really, even here in the States, just do not get much publicity at all, and really deserve more.
Yeah, and I levied a criticism of the Chiefs earlier on the season, and I'm going to levy the same criticism because the Chiefs are so used to being ahead and they're so used to controlling games. If you flash them something that they either haven't seen or don't know how to deal with, it takes them far too long to make adjustments. We saw this in the Super Bowl last year. Yes, I mean, you can credit Todd Bowles for rushing 5, rushing 6, and overpowering the banged up offensive line. Yeah, I mean, listen, of course. I mean, that was an obvious plan. I think they should have been prepared and aware for that. Can you always stop it? No. Did they have an answer for it? No. And I think there was just too many times we saw early on in the season where they just couldn't get going. And, we see these instances where the Chiefs it's not an arrogance. It's a kind of like, we know we can do what we can do at will. And we know that we can just bully opponents into positions where we will be strong and win games. I just think that the difference between this Chiefs team, because they'll talk about it as a dynasty in the years to come, 4 straight AFC title games. It's a phenomenal achievement. And they'll talk about it as a dynasty, but they're going to walk away from those 4 AFC title wins or appearances with 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 ring. And they might get back there next year. They might continue to extend this streak. But at the end of the day, they've left a couple on the table because they haven't made critical adjustments. And I question what is going on with the coaching staff. And maybe this is why a coach like Eric Bieniemy, who's so heavily touted and heavily respected, isn't getting jobs, because they must see what we can see, right? I'm not an NFL expert. I don't work in the NFL. I'm not paid as a coach. I'm a guy who sits on my sofa and watches games and writes notes. Like, that's, if I can pick this stuff up, more severely advanced and more experienced people than myself probably can. And I think I just would like to see some adjustments in game away from the plan for next season. And they'll come back stronger. They'll be better. Mahomes is in his prime, or even not even at his prime yet. And a lot of what they said yesterday about the way he reads the game and the progressions is incredible. It's good to see. But they just need to make adjustments in game quicker, because other coaches can seem to do this. They can just turn the game on the head. And we saw this with the Bengals yesterday. Their game plan didn't work at halftime. They just changed. They changed the whole script. They went away from the run on first down. They got more aggressive. They got the ball down the field. They made some heavy defensive adjustments, which worked. And it bought them enough time to win the game. And that's what matters. That's the difference between why the Bengals are in the Super Bowl now and why the Chiefs are going home. And that shouldn't have happened at 18-point lead at halftime. Shouldn't happen, or just before halftime.
So to a novice like I, at that stage with everyone dropping back, is that not when the Chiefs should have pulled out Clyde Edwards-Helaire and started running the ball heavily to get them to come out of coverage again?
Good question. Yeah, I don't know if that would have changed. I don't know if they would have had any more success with the ground game. Maybe they would have, running against the slightly lighter fronts, I guess. But it was didn't seem like it was necessarily that they were playing with more defensive backs. It just seemed like some of the linebackers were dropping back into coverage right off the snap a lot. So I'm not sure how much that would have helped.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, you've got Tyreek Hill, who wasn't targeted in the second half. Right? You've got such an explosive weapon there. If I'm seeing an 8-man front, obviously that's going to negate a lot of what the cheetah can do, which is to go deep and beat men. So what's the best weapon in his arsenal is speed. Try some end arounds, try some screens. You're going to be given first downs off short yardage screens. Play him in the slot a little bit. Get the coverage to move up and try and force the issue, because what the Buccaneers did in the Super Bowl against this Chiefs team is they dropped back. I think they dropped 7 most of the time. And what they did is they said we're going to take the cheetah out of the game. So we're going to take Tyreek Hill out of this game because he gashed us for 200 and odd yards in the Week 13 game before the bye. We're going to stop that. But Travis Kelce can eat at will. Between the 20s, he can do what he wants. And Travis Kelce can have 130 yards. Doesn't bother us because we know we're going to prevent D. And it just seemed to me that they just panicked a little bit. And Jerick McKinnon was heavily involved in the first half, barely used in the second half. I don't know if it was an injury or lack of usage, but he was running with real ferocious, tenacity through the lines. I would have used him more. I would just got a bit more creative with, just some end arounds, some screens. I would have even put Tyreek Hill in the run game. Like, you got a decent offensive line, Joe Tooney there. Let him run for a few yards. Just create some clever design run schemes and just, and you force the defense to be honest then and go, because Tyreek Hill is that kind of player. If he gets through that first line and then he's up against the linebackers with that kind of speed, if he can pivot and put a spin move on, he's going to the house or he's going for a 40-yard gain. And then you're thinking, well, okay, now linebacker needs to commit now. So he needs to think. But they just didn't do anything. It was like, okay, we're gonna run it on first down. On second down, we're going to try and throw it for like 15 yards in the intermediary, but we've got the linebackers there who can go sideline to sideline, stop the game. And in the third, we can bring the pressure onto Mahomes and force him out of the pocket and try and get him to not make a play or get to the quarterback, which is just what happened. And it was the same thing. And just thinking, God, just do something different. Like, it's the same thing all the way through the game. So that's what I would have done differently. I mean, hindsight's a great thing, and I'm not an NFL coach, but you got to use your best players, your best weapons. And
we've said that before, didn't we? Get the ball in the hand of your playmakers, and that's what the Bengals did with Chase and things like that at times.
Well, and exactly, like you look at, we talked about this with the Eagles against the Buccaneers. Don't target Devonta Smith until the game's over. Oh, they're 30-0 down. Oh, look, we're going to give the ball to Devonta Smith. That's too late. You can't give a team a 30-point head start. It's actually say you got to get it in the hands of your playmakers, your best plays. This is why the Rams are so successful, because when the game's against them, they get the ball to Cooper Kupp. And he makes plays. Doesn't matter where he is on the field. He's in the far corner for the end zone. He's in the slot. He's out wide of the screen. Occasionally he ran the ball yesterday. That's what you got to do. Your best players have got to touch the ball, and that's how you get out of a funk and make some plays happen. It took too long for the Chiefs yesterday, and they frittered it away, and it's their own fault.
Oh, talking of best players, Joe Burrow's now got the chance to be not only the first person to win the Heisman, a national championship, and a Super Bowl. He could do it within 3 years, which is some achievement when you think of the names that have come through them records, right?
It is amazing. And he's done some other really impressive historical things. I mean, his 8.9 yards per pass attempt, or whatever he averaged this season. Tom Brady never had a season with an 8.9 YPA. The guy, the undisputed greatest of all time. Aaron Rodgers has had one season where he topped 8.9 yards per attempt. And Burrow does that second year coming off a major knee injury. This guy's really special. And to think that he is going to be throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for, at least the next, 3 years. It's just really exciting. And Burrow's got such a bright future.
Absolutely. And also with Joe Burrow has completed 12 passes this year of 50 yards or more, which is the most that any quarterback has thrown in the last 20 years.
Wow.
I mean, it shows you the arm strength. It just shows you the confidence. It's not just the talent. The talent will get you X far. We've seen talented players come in the Jameis Winston comes to mind as one of the best ever college quarterbacks. With his record and pedigree and physical attributes, this guy was a superstar in the making. Never happened. And it's that he just has this attitude that it's confidence, not arrogance. It's borderline, and I think it's just at that level where he understands it's a team game. You saw the emotions when he got to the Super, when he won the game, the way he went around, and I love the fact he went around to every single play, brushing off the interview. He's going around to every single one of his teammates. Like, we did it. He's a great leader. He's a great person, and he's great for football. And that AFC, we talked about this last week.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen,
Justin Herbert,
Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I mean, that is a stacked conference for years.
Deshaun Watson behind the scenes, I guess.
Well, who knows where he ends up?
Yeah.
Mac Jones looked really good this year. He's a player who could. I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to join that echelon, but definitely you're looking at the talent wise, and you think, what's there? Who knows? I mean, Pat won't want to admit it, but if Aaron Rodgers ends up in Denver with Nathaniel Hackett, I mean, you're talking about a conference that has just got some of the best talent and the best quarterbacks. I mean, for years it was always the NFC. The NFC had all the stars, and now it really has flipped in the last few years, and it's amazing to see.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Murph. Sorry, my dog is
making an appearance.
Something. Yeah. Stop. Someone asked me, like, they speculated on what a trade might look like to the Broncos. And someone said, 2022 first, a 2023 first, maybe a 2023 second, Jerry Jeudy, Alberto, and I forget, Draymond Jones, good defensive lineman. Someone's like, the Broncos would give up all that for, like, that seems too steep. And then I said, well, I mean, like, look at it. Look at what you're facing with all the quarterbacks in that conference. And you think you're going to, and they've got so many of the pieces already in place, and you're going to win without a top quarterback. So I can understand why Denver would pay that kind of a price.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't. I just think I wouldn't. I just think I get it. Like, at the end of the day, but is Aaron Rodgers? Like, Aaron Rodgers has not made enough Super Bowls to say that he's going to compete. I mean, he's a great quarterback and does great. By the time he settles in, I just don't see the value of giving up your entire franchise for it. I think you're going to have to accept the fact that 2022, whatever happens, is going to be a struggle. I don't think you're going to get a great free agent quarterback. I think you take what you can get. And then I think you look at it in 2023 and think, what's out there? What can we do? Because I just think next year the year that you want. Do you want to go all in on Aaron Rodgers for 3 years? Because that's realistically what you'll get at most 3 years. And you're going to be in the same division with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. And if you're lucky enough to get out of that, you're going to have to face a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, or a Josh Allen. And if you don't do it in 2 or 3 shots, what you've given up is 3 or 4 years after that of potential opportunity, because that's what you're giving up. So that's why I think I'd go with the youth. I just think you're better off take a free agency quarterback this year. There's not many great ones, but I wouldn't draft one in this year, and then I'd work a trade or try and work up a trade and get to the top of the board, because I think you're better off with a young one under contract, rookie contract, take a couple of years and try and find that next quarterback, because that's what the Bengals have done. That's what the Chiefs did. That's what the Chargers have done. That's what the Bills have done. That is the model of success now. Getting a veteran free agency quarterback, unless it is an affordable price. If it's a first round pick or a first and second round pick, fine. 2, I doubt you're getting a good one for 2 anyway. 3 and 4, whatever it will cost, I just can't see more. Why? I just don't get mortgaging the franchise for. It's a high risk strategy that I don't think pays off.
Fine. So
that's my.
Let's move on. Let's head back to the weekend's games. Let's Aaron Rodgers trade talk done. 49ers Rams. I didn't see a lot of this one. Time kicked in over here, but Pat, what was your take on this game?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I kind of expected the 49ers to win this, just having seen the 49ers beat the Rams in 6 straight, and just kind of have Kyle Shanahan have Sean McVay's number for a while. So, and I just I did kind of think that the 49ers were the better team everywhere but quarterback. Just that defensive line that hadn't given up, I think, more than 52 yards to any single running back since week 10, that, can always apply a pass rush with 4 and cover. I mean, their defensive backfield, and we saw it yesterday, that's like the one glaring weakness the 49ers have. And Stafford was able to exploit that weakness. The 49ers just had no answer for Cooper Kupp when that pass rush couldn't get home. So yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting, and like the pressure that the Rams are capable of generating up front. Like their defense has been more inconsistent this year than it has been the last 2 or 3 years. So kind of interesting that they would make the Super Bowl this year. When their defense has maybe been less formidable than it has been. But man, the one area that I think they're going to really be able to exploit against the Bengals is just the pressure they can put with their defensive line on a suspect offensive line. Like I don't know how the Bengals are going to stop Aaron Donald. So that's going to be
and even if you do, you got Von Miller the other side.
Exactly.
As Tampa found out, it was no easy feat.
I think I'll talk about Sunday's game first, and I think first of all that the 49ers lost this game. As much as anyone wants to talk about the Rams winning this game, the 49ers lost this game. You have to look at the lack of, first of all, the lack of discipline at times with the commitment to the run just going away, calling pass plays where run plays were sufficient, not converting on 3rd and short. These are just fundamental errors. But then there was execution errors on the field. Like Tart has to pull in that interception. He's under no pressure. It's straight in the numbers. That's an inexcusable drop. It's an inexcusable drop that probably wins the game. And there was a catalog of errors. And the thing that I found most interesting is when Deebo Samuel was not on the field, this offense just didn't go. It just didn't go anywhere. It just completely stalled in neutral. It was just an irrelevant, an irrelevant offense. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, Jimmy G's not that bad a quarterback. He's not great. We know he's not a franchise leveling up the rest of the franchise and everything, but we know he's competent. You don't get to a Super Bowl and an NFC title game in 3 years without having some ability. Okay, he's not going to be winning Hall of Fame votes, and he's not going to be winning MVP votes anytime soon, and rightfully so. But he's got enough ability there, and I don't think he had the worst game yesterday. I think you just have to look at it again at the play calling and just think when things aren't going your way. I just think Shanahan's got far too conservative there. You've got the momentum, the tide is all going your way. Matt Stafford's underthrowing the ball. You're getting home. You're forcing errors. There's a lot of things there that were there to be exploited. You were forcing turnovers or you didn't take them. But you've got to commit on 3rd and short. You've got to get over the line. They make the stop on 4th down on Stafford on the sneak. And you just think, this is it. This is where they're going to really just pummel this. And they just didn't. And it just got to, and we saw this in the Super Bowl as well when they lost to the Chiefs. They got too tight, they got too conservative, and it's just about who has got the most conviction in their plan. At the end of the day, the Rams just had the most conviction in their plan. They stuck to it. We're going to get Cooper Kupp involved. We're going to use Beckham when we can't get Kupp in the game. We've got a run game that will do enough to control the clock and to run the ball and keep defenses honest. And that's ultimately what they did. And, Sean McVay called a terrible, terrible second half at times. The usage of the timeouts and the failed challenges. I don't know why he's challenging there. Either time made no sense to me. But credit to Matt Stafford, again, in the Buccaneers game, They had a terrible second half. He stepped up when it mattered. He won the game for them. He did exactly the same. He didn't play very well in that second half, but when it push came to shove and he needed to make the plays, he made the plays. And that's what they've paid him for. That's the difference between him and Jared Goff. They've both got a mistake in them. They both will turn the ball over. But the difference is Matt Stafford on the line will make you enough plays to win football games, and Jared Goff won't. That is the difference. So we'll see what happens. But I think there is a concern here for this performance. If I'm watching this now, having watched the Rams over the last 2 weeks, I am concerned. Like, if Matt Stafford has to make all the throws for them to win this game in the Super Bowl, I know which quarterback I'd rather have in the Super Bowl. I'd rather have Joe Burrow all day long and twice on Sunday. Like, if this is going to come down to the quarterbacks, the Bengals are in a great shape. But you're right, Pat. That offensive line is.
I mean, he's got to get the ball out quick. No matter where he's throwing it to, he's got to get it out quick.
I sent a message to people after the Bengals won, and it's like the Bengals are proving that O-line doesn't matter. They've just ripped up the rule book that actually you don't need to draft an offensive line. You just need to draft a very elusive quarterback who's very good against the blitz. And Joe Burrow is, I think, the fourth best quarterback against the blitz. Actually, ironically, Matt Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFL against the blitz. So, we'll get to the Super Bowl preview. I don't think you're going to see a lot of blitzes, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of man coverages. I think you're going to see a lot of zone. And that will suit Stafford, I think. If he's not going to get pressured too much and they play a lot of zone and containment D, I think he'll handle it a lot better than Mahomes did. So I think the Bengals need to dial up something very, very special to handle it. But, credit the Rams because they hung in there and they did a great job to manage the game. It was about who managed the game better in the fourth quarter. And 100% it was the Rams, and they deserved it on that. But I do think the 49ers threw this one away. I think, you're up 10 at the start of the fourth quarter. It's a winnable situation. You just keep doing what you did in the third quarter, keep running the ball, and we just look different. And you've got to get more playmakers. So, they look stacked, but they just don't have enough playmakers. They don't have enough people that make. It's Deebo Samuel. Occasionally it's Kittle, but that relies on Jimmy Garoppolo to make the play. Ayuk, he's not making many plays. When he does, he looks good. But, I almost felt they need like a bulldozing back. They need, they almost need like a Jerick McKinnon, ironically, who they signed and didn't get any usage out of. I think they really need
most healthy. Might have been a different game.
Yeah, it could have been. I just think they need like a bit of a bulldozer back just to break some tackles and to put in the hard yards. Just when things aren't going well and you can't scheme an opening or two, just someone to get you that 4 or 5 yards of carry on first down and just slow the game down, take the time of possession control and just buy you time to make the critical plays and decisions. That's what I think they really lack.
We're just under a fortnight away then from the Super Bowl. We now know it's actually the Rams at the Bengals at the Rams, if that makes sense, I think. So, a little bit confusing. We've obviously spoken about the Rams defensive line against Joe Burrow and that offensive line, but what other keys to the game are there, Pat? How do you see it going? And stick your neck on the line, pick a winner for us.
Other keys to the game. Yeah, I do think establishing the run to some degree, like people don't want to hear that. And, maybe there were some teams that kind of stuck with the run too heavily on first down. I know the Bengals were criticized for that. Like, I think play calling and running at the right times and sort of maybe more passing to set up the run than establishing the run. I think Zach Taylor's got to be more willing to throw aggressively on first down than he was yesterday. Like, some of the play calling was really suspect. And I think the Bengals had like one first down run of more than like 3 or 4 yards yesterday. So Burrow was kind of constantly in like these negative down and distance situations, and yet he was able to overcome it. So pass to set up the run, I think is going to be the better formula for both teams. And like the Bengals have got to figure out a way to keep Aaron Donald and his mates at bay. Like that, if they can't keep the pressure off Donald or off Burrow, I don't think Burrow can win a second playoff game where he is sacked 8 or 9 times and still manages to overcome it.
Which I think, just adding to that, the biggest loss of yesterday for them was losing CJ Uzomah, because it doesn't look like he's going to be back. CJ Uzomah would be in there as someone as an extra blocker to buy you that time, because he's not a big explosive play threat and catching. He's there for the blocking, inside blocking, and he would have been there to handle either Von Miller or to be those double teams. So I think he's a big loss if he's not fit in the Super Bowl.
He is, although, Drew Sample is a pretty good blocking tight end too. And maybe, like, I thought I heard some optimism this morning that Uzomah and Higbee, I think, both have sprained MCLs. So that gives them a chance, at least. Like, that's a 2 or 3 week injury. Maybe there's a chance they could be intact for the Super Bowl. As far as a prediction, I don't know, like maybe 27-24 Bengals. This is a tough one. I think it's going to be close. I was a little surprised that the Rams were opened up as, I think, 3.5 point favorites. I saw it as more like a 2.5 point line. So, I kind of like the Bengals. I've been riding them against the point spread throughout the playoffs. So, I'll say that they
one more go.
Yeah, I think so.
Murph, how about yourself? How do you see it going?
Oh, I mean, I'm not going to give too much detail away because I've got a week and a bit's worth of content and shows to put out, and to blow it all early would be a shame.
Well, we've got a great fantasy segment lined up, so get your prediction in, and we'll come.
I'm not going to give a prediction because I've got to say at the very least tomorrow night or later, or in any of the Super Bowl specials that we'll be doing. But what I will say,
if you've got a show tomorrow night, you say one team tonight, one team tomorrow, and you claim that you was right either way.
What I will say is this. I've talked a little bit, so I think you can see a lot of zone defenses from either team. You're just talking about Burrow and Stafford, both very good against the blitz. They're also very good in man coverage. So I think you're going to see a lot of zone. Here's what I will say. If this game is close in the fourth quarter, I really like the Bengals to win, because I think the Bengals have been so battle hardened with all the overtimes, with all the close games that they've been in. They know how to get it done. They've got the more reliable place kicker. They got the guy who can kick with the longer leg. For me, if this game is close in the fourth quarter, it's advantage Bengals. I think for me, the path to victories are very simple. Bengals need to keep it close or to really be explosive and just keep hammering, that secondary of the Rams. The Rams is very simple. They have to get the lead and they have to hold on to it, and they need to just keep knocking that door down, because if they can control the time of possession, they can control the game, they'll win the game. But they'll need to be up. I think for me, they'll need to be up at least a score, if not more, in the fourth quarter to really. I actually don't know yet. I can build a narrative. No, and I'm being serious. I could actually build a narrative for both sides. I really can.
Yep, you could, which is a great show either way.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say that, I think for me, the better story is the Bengals winning.
Yeah.
Rams fans will disagree, but a team that was, picking first overall 2 years ago, they picked fourth in this draft? No, fifth. They picked because Pitts was fourth.
Pitts went fourth, yeah.
Chase went number 5. So they picked, they went first pick, fifth pick. They won 4 games last year. They won 2 games the year before.
Yeah.
Zach Taylor, very lucky to probably keep his job, shows some great commitment from the Bengals organization, and they've been rewarded for it with this Super Bowl appearance. So they're a better story to win it. I know Rams fans would disagree, but at the same token, the Rams have produced unbelievable signings in free agencies and trades, so they definitely have the more stacked roster.
You said there about Zach Taylor. I did saw something start of the season that came back up on my newsfeed today that Zach Taylor was actually with one bookmaker favourite to be first to lose his job this season.
Yeah, and that wasn't unfair. That sounds like an outrageous take now, but the guy had won 6 games in 2 years.
Yeah,
it's not an outrageous take.
It isn't.
I think there's still people here who question how good a coach he is, even despite how far they've gone. And by the way, I just have to comment, Murph, that it's great that 2 guys doing this podcast on American football in England, that you, of course, tout a kicker as a key to the Super Bowl. You know, in the land of football, don't overlook the kicking part of the game. And McPherson is fantastic. I mean, he might be the new Justin Tucker. He's just money.
He is. I've had the pleasure of watching him at Florida, and also, you know, he's what 12. Is it 11 for 11 or 12 for 12 this postseason? Anyway, he's got the most rookie. He's the rookie with the most kicks made in a postseason in NFL history already. So he owns that record, and he's absolute money. And do you know it's ironic because that Green Bay game in those conditions where there was so many missed kicks in that game, that was the making of him. That was the making of him. He went through something really difficult, lost the game to the Packers, and he lost it. And he came back better for it, you know, and that showed me that he's going to be a great kicker because you either do in a Roberto Aguirre where you lose a game and then you just spiral out of control and you just can't handle it, or, you know, you take it, you get better from it, and then you kick your team to the Super Bowl, which is what he's done. So, yeah, Evan McPherson, I'm telling you now, Super Bowl MVP. Let's put it out there.
So Bengals to win it now, Murph. Have you changed?
Well, maybe he kicks all the points. Maybe the Rams win it and McPherson's the MVP. Could that happen? Who knows?
I'm not putting a pound on it, I'm afraid, no. So, so it would be remiss of us to have Pat here and not have a super early look ahead to the fantasy season ahead. So we've lined up a couple of questions. We're going to run around and see what names Pat can throw out for each of these questions. And Murph, and hey, I've done some name writing down for what it's worth as well. So, Pat, lead us off. Who are some Dynasty Sleepers you are targeting this offseason?
Oh, sleepers. Boy, you stumped me right off the bat with this one. I think one that people are going to be excited about next year, or maybe not even excited enough. Like, I'd love to see what Terry McLaurin could do if he actually gets a quarterback. I don't know if he qualifies as a sleeper, but
right.
So he's one, and I'll go with more of a sleeper. And I was just talking about this guy. Like I'm kind of obsessed with him, Kadarius Toney. Like what we saw out of him in a couple of games this year. Like he is athletically special, and I'm a little worried that it was kind of injuries that kept him off the field. And it wasn't just a single injury. It was kind of a medley of 3 or 4 things keeping him from playing down the stretch. I worry that he might be one of these guys who's constantly battling injuries. But, man, what we saw from him in just a couple of games, he looked like a future star. So I'm excited about his future.
Fair. I don't know if Murph's back with us yet, but I'll jump in and he can give us a signal. Fine, I'm going to go first anyway, Murph. So, I've got a couple of names. I've got Curtis Samuel. We've seen the Bengals use Jamar Chase in a kind of utility role, and the Niners have switched to doing it with Debo. And I'm thinking Curtis Samuel, coming off the injury, potentially has that ability, not maybe at the same level, but again, he could fulfill that role for Washington. So we'll see how. I think he'll fall in drafts because of the injury. We'll see how he comes out. The other one I want to put out there is DJ Shark. Again, another one coming back off a big injury. Big playmaking ability. Remains to be seen if he stays with Trevor Lawrence and that at the Jacks. But again, I think he'll be drafted at a pretty reasonable value and available pretty cheaply to buy during the offseason as well. So, Murph, how about yourself? Who you got now?
Yeah. So I'm back. Sorry, I just lost audio there. So for me, I like to find guys that are really, really like massively under the radar that absolutely nobody's talking about. Okay. The first one is Michael Thomas. We know that situation in New
2
Orleans
years ago, mid-first round pick. Nobody's talking about him.
Well, no one's talking about him now because he's not played.
No.
He's not played for a season and a half, and he's sitting there on people's rosters. People don't know what the score is. Now Peyton's gone. He could face some form of regeneration or reintegration because there was clearly a coaching problem. He requested a trade. He didn't play when he was maybe fit, and then he went off, and then the whole thing mid-season with the injury, that was weird. So he's someone I think you could probably acquire for a lot less than what he'll probably give you. So I definitely like him as someone to acquire. I really like I've talked myself into this narrative of Amari Rodgers of Green Bay.
You said last week, yeah.
I said this, and I really believe this. I even wrote this on Fantasy Pros that I do think Jordan Love is going to be the quarterback in 2022 for the Packers, and I think that the amount of time they would have played on scout team together, and the amount of time they would have played, playing catch, they have a great relationship day one. We know that Packers front office is not going to draft a wide receiver high up on the board because that's not their MO. So they're going to work with what they've got.
It'd be ironic if they did the year Rodgers left, wouldn't it? Eh? Crikey.
I mean, that would be the ultimate. That would be the ultimate kick in the teeth, wouldn't it? I mean, that really
would.
Up
yours, yeah.
So I really can see a role. I don't know what's going to happen with Devontae Adams, but I think right now I'm looking at that situation, thinking you could probably get Amari Rodgers for tokens, next to nothing. A low round pick. If you won your league, you could probably pick him up for a late third that's worth almost nothing. So I'm sprinkling. I'm trying to acquire him in some places. Absolutely. Another one I really like if you're struggling at tight end is Trey Mckitty. Again, did very, very little for the Chargers this year, not on anyone's radar. Jared Cook's gone. Donald Parham's gone. So he is going to be by de facto the number one tight end on that roster. He actually started the last couple of games of the season. He looked all right. I want any part of that Chargers offense. Mike Williams might not be there. There's not going to be that many familiar faces around. I'm just buying the opportunity of getting someone who might be a target for Justin Herbert and that high-powered offense for essentially free. A throw in a deal. So if I'm trying to do a deal and someone's got Trey Mckitty, I'm just going to get him thrown in. Probably not anymore. Yeah. Anyone listening to this is probably going to turn around and tell me this. And then one more for me is it's not really a sleeper, but I'll save it for the buy lows. No, I'll stay with that. They're my sleepers under the radars.
Fine. Murph, I'm going to come to you first this time, so we give Pat a bit more time to consider his answer. So, who are some players you will be looking to move off of your rosters? You spoke about who we're buying. Who are you looking to ship out at this stage?
It's a good question.
You wrote
so
it.
Yeah, I'd forgotten to written it. Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking at older wide receiver profiles that have been productive. So, someone like Keenan Allen would be someone for me. I'd be looking to get cash in now. Again, I've just talked about buying pieces of this Chargers offense. Now I'm talking about selling one. But, Keenan Allen's approaching 30. We know that drop-off is coming. And I think you're not going to get much more than what you've got for him now. So he's one I would definitely be interested in parting with. Same goes with someone like Brandon Cooks. I absolutely love him in a redraft format, but in a dynasty format, again, given what he did last year, I still think you can get something very worthwhile for him outside of what I think he could potentially produce. I also, Chris Godwin would be a good one here to get rid of, because right now, wherever he lands, it's not ever going to be as good as it was. We haven't even talked about the fact that Tom Brady retired and unretired in the space of an hour on Saturday. So we don't know where Chris Godwin's going to end up. He could stay in Tampa. I can't see how they're going to make it work with the finances unless he gives a massive hometown discount, and I don't think he does. Mm-hmm. So where's he going to go that is going to pay him the kind of money? We're talking Golladay money. We're talking $18 million a year. There aren't that many teams that have that kind of cap space, and the ones that do, guess what? Don't have great offenses. So I don't like Chris Godwin's situation in 2022. He's young enough to overcome a bad situation for a year or two. But if I'm trying to win now, I can acquire good pieces for Chris Godwin based on his name and value and what he's done. Yeah. I'd be trying to ship him off on because I just don't like what situation he's going to land in 2022. Even in Tampa, because if Tom Brady's not there, he's catching balls from Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask or Teddy Bridgewater or Andy Dalton. Nah, it's okay. I'll take my chances and go elsewhere.
Fair. How about yourself then, Pat? What players are you looking to move on from?
I love Murph's Keenan Allen answer. Okay. I think that was a good one. And Allen's he's a guy who doesn't get many yards per catch. He's a guy who doesn't score a great deal of touchdowns. that means he's got to catch a lot of balls to be valuable. And with all those targets and catches comes a greater risk of injury, which, he was developing a reputation of being injury prone early in his career. He's kind of gotten out of that by staying healthy, for the prime years of his career. But now, even though we are probably going to see Mike Williams leave and some of these tight ends, yes, he's still going to be the number one target, but I just don't know if we're going to see enough from him. Like it might be hard for him as he ages to continue this formula of, 100 to 120 catches a year, and taking all that sort of punishment. Adam Thielen is another one, I think. Like Justin Jefferson is clearly the target hog there. Thielen has been floating his value with all these touchdowns, which statistically a little bit fluky maybe. And we've seen like a little bit of a downturn in metrics like yards per route run, yards per targets. Ezekiel Elliott, I'm just completely out on. Like, I think we've been seeing the beginning of the end maybe. And yet he's going to be drafted highly just because people are going to pay homage to the track record. So he would be another one. And then like I've given Laviska Shenault enough time. I'm done. I'm out. I loved him in college. I've given him 2 years and like I'm done waiting.
He'd have been on my list, but he's not on any of my rosters. I never bought into. I was out day one. I was like, he's got a unique skill set that just doesn't translate to fantasy football. Bless him. Nice guy. Good player. Doesn't translate to fantasy football. I never bought in. So I don't have him on any rosters. I agree with you. I think I'm against you on Zeke though. On one, because he's got one metric that is just paramount at the position that he will always seem to do very well at, and that's durability.
Stays fit.
The guy stays fit. And listen, if you stay fit for 17 games in fantasy football at the running back position, you're an RB1.
Yeah. And he was playing hurt to his credit this year. Like he just kept answering the bell and like, he wasn't racking up yardage like he normally does, but he was scoring touchdowns. So
exactly. Fair. I know I would buy, listen, he's in decline. Everything points to it, but I just think the fact the guy plays 17 games, I just think how many guys are going to play 17 games? It's just not many. I just think I'll take the guy that plays 17 games over the guy who's up and coming and isn't going to play 17 games.
Yeah. Just for me, really quickly, I've put on there Derrick Henry, age, durability, and I think we might see D'Onta Foreman take a bigger share of that load off him during the regular season. And I mentioned on another show as well, Odell Beckham Jr. and or Woods, depending if Beckham stays at the Rams, because I think they'll just take away from each other at some stage. So if that offense runs with Kupp, Woods, and Beckham, I probably want to avoid those two out of it and maybe just have Kupp as my one. So there'll be people I'm looking into, especially the Rams going to win the Super Bowl, be a decent bit of value, I'm sure. One more then, are there any veterans you are looking to acquire on a win now roster? Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Murph.
Go on, Murph. Pat's deep in thought. Look at that.
Yeah.
I'll go first. I've got a story then. This week, I paid a 4th round, 10th pick for Tom Brady on a win now roster. Seemed really stupid about an hour and a half later. Might be a really good deal an hour and a half after that. So
what do you get? What are you getting at the 410?
Amari Rodgers last year.
All right, fair. But yeah,
I figured it's a win now. It's a super flex. Tyler Heineke was my 2nd or 3rd QB, and I thought, you know what? It would just be Brady-esque to stay another year, win it all, and then walk away. So for a 410, I'll take that all day long. Anyway, that was my little story this week. So who have you got, Murph?
Deshaun Watson in a Superflex league, if you can acquire him. I just think his value is as low as it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think, yes, the cases aren't settled. Yes, what he did was a bad thing. And I'm not condoning that. And I'm only talking about the game played on paper, not the game played in real life. And if you don't condone anything he did and you don't want him on your roster, then I 100% support and understand that. And I'll say that first of all. But just as the game theory play, I just think his value. There's still going to be people that are twitchy that are going to be uncertain. I'm from what I see and read, and it just looks like these cases will be settled. It does look like he'll probably get a small ban at most, which isn't fair, right? But it is what it is. I think his value will never be as low as it is right now. So that's, I think, if you're in the market for a QB, he's probably as good as you're going to get. I think for me, if I'm looking at other veterans that I want in on, that you can acquire, Robert Woods. Really want Robert Woods on teams. He just always produces solid fantasy numbers. People will be scared of the injury and the age. And what Cooper Kupp did this year, I think Cooper Kupp's going to be in line for some regression. I don't know if Stafford's going to be the QB there next year. I'm selling
Woods, you're buying Woods. I'm going to find that league.
I'm gonna buy Woods. I just think there's some players will be productive for quite a while, and he will be one of them. I think another one that people are going to get twitchy on is DeAndre Hopkins. I think Hopkins is another one. I think people are going to get twitchy on. He's getting old, but let's be honest. He played a lot of games hurt, and then he played a lot of games without Kyler Murray. If people are taking his 2021 season into its exclusive parameter, they're going to look at it and think he's washed. And actually, he didn't play that many games with Kyler where he was fit, less than half a season. So, yeah, I just think these are the sorts of players you can get in a buy now, where you can buy them severely undervalued, who will produce you extremely good numbers for what you need for 1 to 2 years, which is all I'm looking to try and get these at. I don't, with the exception of Watson, I don't think any of these players cost you first round picks. So then I'm thinking, second round of a draft this year, this draft class isn't amazing. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. If I had like the two, if I had you probably have to do like a late second or third, maybe even the late first. Even if I had like the 111 or the 112 for D-Hop, I'm probably doing that. And I think someone will be quite happy to do that deal. And I think I would rather take D-Hop knowing he's probably going to be a top 10 wide receiver next year, and try and win it now, than try and get whoever I'm going to get, the 11th or 12th best rookie in this class, who I don't think is going to be all that special. And that could be wrong. I've said that in the past and be wrong.
Yeah.
But
fair enough. Pat, chuck some names at me.
I'll mention two guys from the same team and maybe kind of an unexpected team. The Raiders. I'll say Josh Jacobs. I don't think we've seen his best season from, and I'm encouraged that when John Gruden left the team, we saw Jacobs start to get more involved in the passing game, which is something that he does well and really never got the chance to do with Gruden calling the plays. So, and I think he's still one of the toughest inside runners in football. And it doesn't seem like they are inclined to have anyone share work with him. Like they want to use him as a workhorse. And I think he's good enough to be it. And yet I think people are undervaluing him and undervaluing his ability. So, and the other guy I think is Hunter Renfrow. And I think people view him as this sort of overachiever, and he is indeed that, with his stature and his speed. But like I see him as the new Wes Welker, the new Julian Edelman.
Love it.
Like a guy that is going to consistently be a value. People are going to underplay him and consistently be looking for the the next AJ Green, the prototype, tall, fast, big, and keep overlooking this guy. And I think he's going to be like a perennial draft value going forward. And I would be like happy to get him in the 6th round of drafts next year. And I think that's probably realistic.
I'm going to throw out another name, which I've just forgotten and just remembered. Cedric Wilson of Dallas.
If he stays with the Cowboys. Yeah.
He's staying with the Cowboys. I'll tell you that now. He's going to stay with the Cowboys. I don't think Michael Gallup is going to stay with the Cowboys. You look at what he did down the stretch. I think, again, that uncertainty of is he going to sign the contract? I think you're looking at a 2nd round pick, maybe push. Maybe if someone's really not sure because they picked him up late off the waiver wire, you may even pay a 3rd. But if not, you're paying a 2nd round pick. Yeah, I think he would not shock me if Wilson kept pace with Amari Cooper next year. I think Lamb will break away from the 3 of them. But it would not shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Wilson got more points than Amari Cooper next year. In fact, that's one I would try and sell, by the way, is Amari Cooper. I'd forgotten about him, but I said that last week.
Did. And obviously a buy now, I think for me as well, is on value. I don't think you'll get a better time to buy Christian McCaffrey if you're contending and you haven't got him. But
No.
he's capable of putting up 20 plus points a week when he's on the field comfortably in a PPR league. So if he stays healthy, now's probably the lowest you could ever acquire him. So, Pat, before we call it a day, tell us where we can find you and your articles and what you're doing, and how can people get more involved in Pat Fitzmaurice.
Sure, Dan, and thank you so much to you and Murf for having me on. It's always
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's always great to be on 5 Yard Rush. So you can find me at FantasyPros.com. That's where all my written stuff is. You can find the Fitz on Fantasy podcast pretty much anywhere where podcasts are available. And on Twitter, I am at Fitz_FF.
There you go. Thank you very much for joining us. 2 weeks to the Super Bowl. Bengals, Rams. Murph, anything to add before we close this one out?
Just to say to go download Pat's podcast. I keep talking about it. It's an incredible podcast. You get to learn a lot about the people in the industry, but you get to learn a lot of really smart takes. And I promise you'll be a better player just listening to it, because you go really deep into product into like very specific areas that just help from a gameplay perspective or player perspective. And you'll be a smarter player listening to Pat's pod. And yeah, as you said, all his articles are there on Fantasy Pros. You recently did a perfect draft from last year. I wonder how many people actually pulled off that perfect draft. Go check that out, because it's again really just insightful pieces to sort of how to construct teams even for next year. Probably won't land it quite as well as that, but it just gives you an idea from a roster construction perspective. So if any of you are around listening to this, the pod will go out on Tuesday. So if you're around tonight, or if you're watching this on the live stream or catching this on Twitter, tomorrow, so Tuesday, the 1st of February, I will be doing a show with Jason Bell, former Dallas Cowboys, Houston Texans, and New York Giants cornerback, and also star of the BBC and Sky Sports NFL coverage, and also be joined on stage by Hannah Wilkes, who's presenter for Sky Sports. The three of us are doing a roundtable at Old Street Bar and Grill. I think it's £5 a ticket, and you get a beer with that, so it's ridiculous. So basically, yeah,
it's cheaper than buying the beer normally in London.
Well, it's cheaper than buying a beer normally, and then you get to listen to two brilliant people and myself. Lower the standards, probably why they had to lower the ticket prices, to be honest. But no, you can catch us. We'll be on Old Street. I will be around for chats and photos and etc. So join that. We've got our Super Bowl party on the 13th. So make sure you join that. And that's it. Again, you can tune in. I've just finished a series of articles on Fantasy Pros as well. Pat's pseudo my boss, I guess, now. Not quite, almost soon. Well, I've just gone through all the 2021 rookies. So I mentioned like Amari Rodgers and Trey Mckitty. You can sort of understand my thought process. I've gone through sort of all notable fantasy football rookies. I've done it in 3 parts. So quite long pieces, but they should be entertaining. So go and check those out. And there'll be more stuff coming on the Substack. I've not written it for a couple of weeks because of COVID, but I will do as the end of this week.
Super. Gentlemen, thanks as ever for your time. Championship weekend is gone. We now look ahead to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Love closes out.
Thanks for everything. I hope you've enjoyed the show. And don't forget, as always, keep rushing.